by the end of 2025, so end of year next year, TD and CIBC believe Bank of Canada will be at 2.75. Have you now realized that maybe for some people in some situations over the short term, renting is better?
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Let's see what we say this week. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. This is going to be a catch-up episode with myself and Steven. As always, Steve, we're in the dog days of summer now for real estate markets across Canada. Olympics have wrapped up. Have you been did you enjoy the Olympics? Did you watch it? Did you like any events?
I
like the swimming.
Doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's on. I think it's like the time I turn the TV on and it's just on in the background.
Right.
But
It's
I
noise.
make no like efforts to actually watch something.
Did you see there was in one of the swimming events, I guess one of the swimmers lost their swim cap and it went down to the bottom of the pool. And there's lifeguards on duty for these professional swimmers at these events, which is kind of funny in its own right. But this lifeguard who's like, you know, has the body shape of a regular, probably 30 to 40 year old human being. And they get in their little trunks and they jump in, they dive in the pool, they get the cap, and all the swimmers just staying there. It was pretty funny. I think he's the hero of the Olympics for me, at least.
I thought the hero of the Olympics was the guy that lost his pants in the opening ceremonies.
That was also pretty. No, the surfing guy that got that photo of him. Like,
oh, that was pretty cool.
That was.
Except the surfing was in like Tahiti.
Yeah, it had to be.
So it's like, oh, here's this. Welcome to France. We're literally as far away from France as you can get.
They just had to have the waves, right? I think the surfers. They were on a cruise ship or something, or a big boat. That's where they were staying.
Nobody cares about the Olympics anymore, man.
Well, nobody cares for another 4 years. Then it's I think it's going to LA in 2028, and we'll see what happens there. Real estate side of things, you've been a little frustrated, and I'd like to maybe start the show there. We had an hour call pretty much yesterday when I was driving, which could have just been today's podcast. Should have recorded that, but we probably couldn't have said everything you said on that call. But I got lots of stories on what's going on right now for our side of things in Toronto, but out on the West Coast, what's happening in the dog days of summer?
Yeah, I got fired up last night. I was on the phone till 11 o'clock, negotiating an offer, working with a buyer, and yelling and hanging up on another real estate agent. So I apologize for hanging up on you last night, but yeah, it got heated. There was
Steve,
issues.
A hang up is that's a big decision on a professional level. What did someone have to do to get hung up on?
Well, we ran into problems after completion, before possession. And I was doing my absolute best to rectify those things. And the person on the other end, from my point of view, everybody's point of view, but they were trying to, rather than rectify the situation, they were trying to profit from the situation.
Oh.
And it became clear after much time and a very late night of trying to do it that the profit was more important than the fix. So I abruptly ended the conversation at one point. And we have a fix. They might not like it. But maybe I can talk about it more in the
future. Once it's all wrapped up.
Immediately while it's happening. By the way, this is do not disturb, so I do not get a phone call in the middle of recording this.
You know what? If you get the call from them during this, just put it on speaker and let's just hash this out with them.
We're going to need a translator.
Okay, fair enough. But what are you finding otherwise, though? Because our business is pretty interesting right now.
July?
Oh, we had a great July, but in a weird way.
I just crunched the numbers, and we had our second best July ever on the team after 2016. And it didn't feel like it, but Like, I think we were 9 firm transactions and more written pending into
Right.
August. So, like, that's a very good month for the worst real estate market we've seen in 10 years.
Coming off your worst month
ever. Yeah. No, not my worst month ever, but my worst June of all time.
Okay, so that's one thing. But of those 9 that came together in July, how many of those were things that had fallen apart in June that then just so happened to then come firm in July?
No, they were all new deals.
Really?
Yeah, they were all new deals.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were all. Yeah, no, it was pretty good. It was lots of stuff that came together, and everything just kind of worked out. But man, the work that's being put into these things, I feel sorry for the folks that don't have the, what's the right word? I guess the experience or the understanding of how this is going to go over the next bit, because the work being put into every deal is so much more.
Maybe this is what it always should have been, and we were just
this is regular. Yes,
right.
Yeah, this is why. Like, I've come out of a few negotiations this week going like, oh, I don't charge enough, right? Like, that's really where I feel very lucky. Oh, this is the most arrogant thing I'm ever going to say. I feel really good for my clients that they're working with me and can get through some of these deals, because I know there are other people that cannot. Like, for instance, right now, I would love to tell this story when the deal closes, if the deal closes, but right now I'm working through a short sale. And
for those people that don't know what a short sale is, can you explain it?
It's when there's not enough money to clear title.
Yep. Okay.
So, and it's not necessarily there's not enough equity in mortgages and things, but there's fees. There's my fees. There's lawyer fees. There's all these different things that tie in. There's a clause in the original mortgage that screwed my clients that they were not aware of in the fine print. There's all these levels.
Can you talk about what that was?
Oh yeah, I can talk
just about generally, like, what clause was that?
It's called total indebtedness.
Okay.
So total indebtedness means if you owe any other debts to the same institution, they have the right to tie all of those into your property. So that could be a visa, that could be a car loan, that could be a personal unsecured line of credit, that could be all these different types of debt, a business loan.
Yep.
If you have them all in the same institution, it can really cause problems and screw you. So I would love to actually break that down when the deal closes, after we can't tell which deal it is on my board, basically. I would love to kind of walk through that, because I do have experience with short sales. I've put some of them together before. I've actually bought a short sale myself in the past. And they are possible.
Yep.
And I don't think any agents out, like, less than 0.1% of agents would know how to put together a short sale. In the States, it's a different thing. They know very well.
I've never had to do one. I've never had to do one.
Most people don't. This will be my, I don't know, 5 or more,
like, handful,
that I've done in my career.
And
it's super exciting, just lots of work, right?
And because your client is your client, but the person you're talking to about negotiations would be the bank, right?
Yeah, directly
to the bank. And is it just like who is it at the bank?
Banks will have all sorts of departments, like credit loss protection, that sort of thing. I was amazed at how quickly, when I reached out to the bank, how quickly they responded to me. Because they are very aware of the situation as well, right? And now, when the bank's trying to mitigate losses, they get serious really quick. So, it's like I said, I would love to do that in an entire episode and walk the whole steps through, because it's an amazing story. But obviously, it's not a done deal, and client privilege and all that wonderful stuff.
So, Steve, what I'm hearing, here's the comment I'm writing right now, okay? Steve helped somebody buy property. They couldn't afford it. Now it's a short sale. Steve's helping them sell. But that's not actually what happened in this situation, is it?
That has nothing to do with it. And as we always talk about with Randy, when we had the conversation with him about it's never the real estate that causes
it's usually not the real estate that causes financial stress.
The real estate is most of the solution in most of these cases.
Right.
There's just other things. Is that Rasta like chiming in?
That's my dog chiming in. Someone's probably at the front door. Yeah. Yeah. Just want it to be heard.
The dogs are barking. The dog days of summer. What does dog days of summer really mean? It just means long, drawn out day. Like, where did dog days come from?
Well, what is a dog day? They wake up, they go to the bathroom, they eat, they sleep, and repeat. I think that's just kind of what it is, right? Yeah. I'm excited for August. We talked about this briefly on the Melanie episode, but I'll be a father of 2 very soon. Could be any moment now. So everyone that I've talked to, including you, that has 2, is basically telling me like, good luck. Like, no one's like, oh my God, it's easier. They're like, it's going to be crazy for the next little bit and just get used to it.
Yeah.
I've basically just been told like I'm getting promoted to assistant to the regional manager. So I will be taking more responsibility for the older child because the newborn, obviously, the mother has to be more involved for certain reasons. And yeah, but I'm very excited, man. This is I always kind of pictured myself with 2 kids, and kind of more proud about this than anything work related recently. That's for sure. Even though I have nothing to do with this. I did not grow the baby, but I am the father. I had something to do with it, but I'm not taking credit. Yeah, man. So I'm excited.
Hopefully we don't have to miss a week for a delivery date here. Like we got priorities to get.
I've already made it very clear. We'll be podcasting from the hospital,
from the delivery room.
Yeah.
Well, we are the only Canadian real estate podcast that people want to listen to on Sunday, so we have to make sure that we deliver. So we will do our best to do that. Congratulations, eventually, whenever that does happen. And if you don't see us one Sunday, it's because of that. And
you'll see us. There'll be a Sunday. Go on.
Your life is going to get so much worse over the next couple of years. But after that, I always tell my wife, I was like, if kids come out at 4.5 or 5 years old, I would have 10 of them. It's the 6 month to 4 years old that is just the most painful part I've ever had of my entire life. Not my life, their lives.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So, but you like them now? Everything's good now?
Oh, now I love it. It's great. I would have if there was 10 kids between the ages of 5 and 10 in my house, I would be like, let's mess this place up.
Okay. I've got a topic that I really want to cover, and it's something that I've been toying with on my main channel, but haven't quite figured out how I want to break it down. And it's really just for a lot of people where, listen, we know net worth for Canadians that own homes is significantly higher. It's not a question, it's a fact, than people that rent properties. But saying all that, if you look at just the numbers over the last few years where interest rates are at, what prices have done or gone down, because they really haven't gone up for specifically condos, and you look at what it costs to rent, I think there's actually a pretty strong argument. And I want to go through some of these points based on an opinion piece that came out in the Globe and Mail by Megan McSween. And actually, I was quoted in it based on what she wrote. She was actually someone going through this process and then came to the realization, and the headline of this article is maybe renting is better than buying after all. And as soon as I saw this, I'm like, perfect podcast topic for Steve. I've actually reached out to her. I want to interview her for my main channel. We
could have her here. Why not? I mean, does she rip off her disguise and she's just Klaus Schwab immediately?
No, but I want to give you some of the talking points, and I don't want to speak for her, but just so she had been renting. Okay, she went through the pre-approval process, started to see properties, and then when the switch kind of turned for her, is the property that she was renting went up for sale. Okay, so her landlord was now selling the property that she was currently renting, and it sat on the market. And they went really high at the original price. I don't know where this was located. I'm guessing it's a condo in downtown Toronto. sat on the market for a long time, adjusted price. And in the article that she wrote, said it had been on the market almost a year, which me and you know at that point is just like, well, it's just priced wrong, right? Like we know that. And then she had actually made an offer to the owner to say, I'll buy it at this price. They were just hard no. And she's looking at everything and saying, like, her family told her it was better to buy. You know, people in the industry told her it was better to buy. But she's looking at the numbers, and right now to buy a $550,000 condo in Toronto with a decent down payment, all in your $3,200 a month with mortgage, and to rent that same property is $24,000. So I think that there is now an argument to be made that at least over the next period of time, if condo prices are not going up and they could go down, the next few years mathematically could make more sense, because interest rates are at 5%. When you really break down a new mortgage at 25-year AM, your payments are basically just interest in those first 5 years. You're basically paying rent anyways. So I want your response to this on, have you now realized that maybe for some people in some situations over the short term, renting is better?
This episode is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Real estate agents, listen up. Realty Ninja has created over 9,000 Canadian real estate websites, and they are no joke. I've been using Realty Ninja in my business since they were a small little startup in North Vancouver. Tiny, dusty little office with old leather couch and all. But look at the ninjas now. Realty Ninja is the go-to platform for real estate agents in Canada. Websites are no longer a nice to have. They are a must. Your clients expect you to feature their listings in the best light possible. They expect you to go with Realty Ninja. The backbone of my real estate business is my website. I wouldn't pick any other company to host my website other than Realty Ninja. Don't believe me? Go to my website. Check it out right now. Go to krproperties.ca and you will see that it's powered by Realty Ninja and has been for over a decade. They have all of the features I need to grow my business year after year, including lead capture, mobile-friendly design, built-in SEO, and so much more. The best part of Realty Ninja is it's totally free to sign up, no credit card is required, and you only pay when you are ready to launch your new Realty Ninja website. And no, that's not it. Sign up today at realtyninja.com/Tom, and you will receive 20%, yes, 20% off of your entire first year when using Realty Ninja to host your real estate website. Their templates are super easy to work with yourself, or you can have the ninjas design something for you like I did. Not only is Realty Ninja the best product on the market, but it's also affordable. Listeners of this show know that I am as cheap as they come, and I've been using Realty Ninja for well over a decade now. Start your free trial today, and when you launch, save 20% using our link in the description below. And let Realty Ninja help you take your real estate business to the next level. And now, back to the podcast.
Absolutely, Tom Storey. If you are looking at a monthly cost basis, not taking into any account of principal pay down, the possibility of being evicted, and all of the other stuff that goes along with it, just a monthly cost basis only,
yep,
it is making sense to rent. Sure. If those are your only metrics, right? So I just don't view that as realistic. Or I don't view that as safe for a lot of folks. If they were to get evicted, what happens with the upheaval of your life in that time? Like, sure, I will agree with you on this one for the first time ever on the show. No, second time ever. I think I might have said it before once. But yeah, like on a month-to-month cash out basis for your shelter, sure.
Yeah.
But that's it. Then there's so many other factors. Right?
And so what I, sorry to cut you off. What I was thinking is that I actually agree with her breakdown for her specific situation, and I don't know everything. I'd like to interview her and find out more, and I'm hopeful we will do that. But I think over the next 2 to 3 years, if it was like you said, Steve, just a what does it cost me per month breakdown, renting probably is a better plan for a lot of people for the next 2 to 3 years. My worry is that when rates do come down and prices do come back, because this all will come back. It's like we're all so short-sighted with everything. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it will, right? It's going to come back. When that moment comes, when everyone's now interested in getting back in, and maybe you could get a lower rate and prices hadn't started going up yet, but they're about to, I think a lot of those people that are in those situations are just going to be so comfortable in them that they won't get in when the argument is flipped and it could work for them. That's what I'm more not worried about, but just like, if it were me, I would think about this.
Because what's the motivating factor? The motivating factor is I need to buy when the market's going up so I don't have to pay more later. Not I could buy now when the market's coming down so I don't have to pay more later.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. It's, I guess the argument would be then, sure, if it's $1,000 a month cheaper, that $1,000 a month better be going into first-time home savings account, tax-free savings account.
Right. What are you going to do with the difference
to save on your tax? Like, you have to be diligent with that. And then prep for the other side, right? Like I was talking to one of my brothers is thinking about buying a new car right now. And just for the sake of, I kind of deserve it. My car's old, whatever. And my thought was like, listen, your car has no payments. Every single month right now, start saving a car payment.
Right.
Because then it's 1 month less on the other side. Right? So like, pretend you have a car payment now. So if you take that strategy and there is a prolonged downturn for the next little bit, who knows how, like 2017, you went through something similar to this. Everybody thought 2017 for your market was the end of the world. How long did that take to rebound? Was it only the cheap pandemic money that got you out of that, or did it rebound before that?
Oh, it rebounded before that, but it was actually interesting. 2017 it was the opposite of what's happening now. 2017 pushed down freehold prices. Condos kept rocking in 2017. They weren't impacted. It's completely different. So the condo market just kept moving during that time. And then you saw kind of what's your analogy? Like the top of the beer, the foam being cut off of the housing market. But no,
and now detached is through the roof and going the other way. Like for us right now, detached is actually a little tough. Condos are tough, and townhouses are like, how many can we buy?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like, where does opportunity exist in the current market that we have, right? Like if you're somebody that is not just going to try to time it perfectly, and for whatever life reason you need to move or whatever it is, where do opportunities exist? And I can tell you, like I can see it in the numbers. If you own a house in Toronto between $1 million and $1.5 million, that sector is actually moving, like still fairly quickly. I can't tell you the exact reason why, but between 1.5 and 2 million is a little bit slow. Over 2 is different. That's just a different market. And then condos are obviously not doing great, but there's opportunity. If you're a condo buyer right now, you could get something at a really low price at a 5% interest rate, and then in 3 years, that interest rate could be 3.5 when you renew. I don't know,
let's say that place is $550 in March, and now you're like, oh, it's available at $475. Everybody's like, $475 is not affordable for us.
Well, then
it's like, for Toronto, that's extremely affordable. That's a very deep discount from where we've been. I mean, totally selfishly, I would love a real estate crash right now. I would
you would buy?
Absolutely love it, because I'm considering in the next few years an upsize. Right? So if I was trying
Wait a second, does that mean that you're going to have to take on a new mortgage?
Not if the market crashes and I can pay for it cash. But like if I'm looking at upgrading by, let's say, 50% of my current value of my home, right? Which is an okay upsize, right? No, in dollars, it's an upsize. But like if you had somebody going from a 50% in a condo,
Sure.
going from let's say they're going from a 500 condo to a 750 condo, that's not insane.
No.
So if you were doing a 50% increase and then we saw those prices come back down to what I paid for it, and I still did that 50% increase, it would be half of the increase. So I would very selfishly love a real estate crash. I think it would be great for my own personal pocketbook. I would be able to buy whatever I wanted to buy because of, the diligence, is that the right word, I've had in paying down my mortgage.
I wonder if it's one of those things where, like, if that big mega crash happens, like everyone seems like they want to happen, who are going to be the people that scoop everything up? Is it going to become the people that weren't in the market, or the people that are already in the market thinking like you? Well, that's, do we know, like, the 2008 stuff that happened in the States, right? That rode out many years of really, really terrible situations. I'd love to see like a breakdown of the redistribution of the property, leading into that, who owned it, and then after the facts, who was buying it up at these cheap prices. And then when we got out of it, did things get better for the people that were near the bottom, or did it just get better for the people that already had money and they just bought more properties, and now those properties since then have done very well?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, in 2006 and 7 in the States, your dog could legally buy a house because you didn't have to prove income or existence. So like it was a totally different thing. That's definitely lost. Yeah. But I don't know. It's if here's the thing, most people aren't gonna. Let's say there is a massive crash. Let's say the whole thing comes tumbling down. All the people with jobs,
yeah,
are probably not going to be affected. Meaning, if you're a nurse, your job's always going to be there, and you're probably still going to get overtime, and you're not going to notice any difference in your income, and house prices come down. Right. And that can translate to policemen, to firemen. I mean, there's not a lot of layoffs at the fire hall. You know what I mean? So that being said, they're not producing people. They're not. They're providing a service that's essential for our society to work, but they're not producers, and the overall economy is driven off of producers. So all of those private companies will have other issues, and those are the people that will get smashed. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying they're in the investment space, and they were saying there's an alarming amount of, let's say, very experienced management in private companies that's getting the axe right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. He's like alarming amount.
Well, I mean, those are the jobs you're talking about, though.
No, because let's say for instance, you're a senior manager in your 50s at RBC. You can get cut pretty quick. Mm. Let's say you're, again, a fireman, a nurse. You're probably not getting cut.
Oh, you mean like essential jobs is what you mean by jobs?
I mean jobs that are going to be there no matter what.
Right. Okay.
Right? The carpenter that's helping you do the renovation is going to be in trouble. Those guys helping build all those condos in Toronto right now are going to be in trouble.
Next few years.
People that are producing, making things, even companies that produce whatever, cars could be in trouble. But those things, I don't think accountants are going much of anywhere unless they, as Jimmy said, exit the business because they're just stressed. But like, there's no shortage of accountants in those times because you still have to pay your taxes. You still got to do all your things, right? So I do think that there are so many people that will just have jobs, and they'll continue to just have jobs, and they won't notice the downturn. Mm. So let's say even if you go to 10% unemployment, 15% unemployment, 85% of the people don't know what's going on.
Well, they know what's going on. Maybe there's not impact.
Okay, 50% of the people have no idea what's going on. you know that after you do an evaluation for a client, and they're like, they haven't been paying attention to the real estate market for the past 10 years. They've been living their life.
I mean, going back to what we were talking about before in terms of like just putting in so much more work these days, I'm going on, if I had to average it out, at least 1.5 appointments per day. It's getting crazy per day with people looking to sell. No, but this isn't normal, but this isn't normal for, it's like my appointment ratio is probably the highest of my career. In terms of like how interested people are at having conversations about what to do and trying to figure things out. And then when I sit down with them and go over the numbers and give them that number that is actually this is the number that will get it sold, most of the feedback is like, not yet. I can't do it. Not at that. I'd rather just wait. And that's okay.
But what's the wait? I'm telling people, like, don't think the wait is March next year. Don't think that.
It might be
because it might be.
It depends what you want. If they want 2022, they're waiting a long, long time. If they want, but just a little bit more than what they have.
To be focused on the price is stupid. It's got to be what's the difference to your next move. That's the right way to look at it, right?
Yep.
So I want peak 2022 pricing. Okay, cool. That means you're going to pay peak 2022 pricing for the next place. You got to be able to look at the numbers. Listen, if I get 50 grand less than I was expecting on my current house, 100 grand less, then I need to be able to evaluate and go, is the market I'm buying into doing the same thing?
Right.
As condos are going down and detached is going up, that's not the right equation for a lot of people. But the other way makes a ton of sense. If you were a downsizer right now in Toronto from a house and you're like, I'm going to go live the downtown lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you should if you want to avoid traffic in that godforsaken city.
I cannot believe, I'm going back to what I said before. We need to put tolls in downtown Toronto. And if you're a Toronto resident, you don't pay. But if you're from anywhere else, you pay. Steve, it's insane. And you know what? It's
Olivia.
It's not even the fact, I'm going to tax your rain. It's not even the fact that traffic is bad. It's just like, people that live in Toronto know what lane to stay in when they have to get onto the on-ramp. People that don't cheat all the way up. And like so many of them do it. That just creates it's insane. I feel like just parking my car in that other lane and just stopping anybody.
Are you saying, like everyone lives in Toronto is a nice person and all the people that live in Pickering are assholes?
I'm just saying that they at least probably know which lane to be in. They can still be an asshole and go in the other lane.
The problem I see with Toronto traffic only sitting in it twice a year.
It's gotten worse, Steve. It's gotten worse.
Dude, I could have walked to Pearson faster than I got there last time. And back to your house, actually. The thing I see is that city can't seem to finish a transit project for the friggin' life of it. They can't seem to fix anything. They can't make a decision. Everything is shut down. There's always stuff going on. Look, even Rasta's chiming in on exactly what's going on. Like traffic is that bad. Last time, remember your old place when I left there in the Uber? By the way, if you're friends with Tom Storey, he does not drive you to the airport. I left your old place and I made it around that corner and then back under whatever that Gardner overpass thing is. And I sat there for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yep. That was my last night. I was sitting there for an hour and a half.
Yeah. So painful.
If you're someone in Toronto that lives on the East End or the West End, and you're getting into a new relationship, it's going to be very difficult to date someone on the other end of the city. Almost impossible. Like where you're located has become very, very important because you want to go see each other on a Thursday night after work and you want to come from your house. It's going to take you an hour and a half to get there driving.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you know what would really fix that is less transit solutions and then more people and higher density. That'll really fix it.
Well, we're on the right track then. I might just you'll see me downtown Toronto just whipping around an electric scooter at this rate. That's probably where it's going for me.
But did you see that chart of the people that are moving to, did you post that? Who posted that?
I didn't post it.
Jordan.
Maybe Jordan.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it was like the people moving to what city? And Toronto is like double any other city in North America.
Even though you think everyone's leaving here to go to Calgary.
Yeah, it was like 200,000 people into Toronto last year.
This is overall just new immigrants or just overall?
I am quoting an Instagram post that I saw for 30 seconds. So
Okay.
I have 10 seconds. Let's be real. I have no idea. I'm just saying Toronto is where everybody's going. And the traffic ain't going to get better. It ain't going to get better. Finish a train.
Our whole train station got flooded not that long ago. Stephen, the Fraser Institute, which are putting out some real hot headlines recently about taxes, found that the average Canadian family earned an income of $109,000, $235, and that their total tax tab was nearly $47,000. The average Canadian family spent 43% of its income on taxes and 35.6% on basic necessities.
It's too bad they're not paying their fair share. We need more tax.
It's more expensive just to pay the government than to get food, shelter, transportation. What do you have?
I have a theory on this. So we're at that's almost 50% tax for the average family now, right? And this is why I think all of this government, particularly in BC, all of this government housing is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you pay rent to the government, they're getting probably another 35 to 45% of your income.
Oh, yeah, they're going to get all of it soon.
So you're effectively going to be at like 92%, not tax.
Yep.
Money that you earn to the government at the end of the month. Isn't that crazy?
I
tell you my. No, okay.
Yeah, go for it. I
was going to say, can I tell you my story about living in government housing?
Yeah. So this is news to me. Even you've never really.
Too, actually.
You didn't. I guess you didn't know as a child you lived in government housing because you were too young. Is that what it was?
I had no idea.
When did you find this out?
I was just talking to my mom about it the other day. So my parents split up when I was young. Careful, Tom. You're having another one. You know, the second kid is usually...
Shut up.
Like, I was the one that broke up the marriage. You know what I mean?
That's just you, though. That's you.
Be careful. Oh, trust me. I told my wife, I'm like, we're so lucky. We love each other. Well, at least I love her 100% and not like 99.9% because I see how it happens now with two kids. Anyway, so when that happened, my mom ended up moving into government housing.
Okay.
Right? Early 80s. She was the first, our family was the first to occupy that unit. So it was brand new, late 70s, housing crisis, inflation problems, government housing. So we moved in and it was absolutely brand new.
Okay.
After 1 year of living there, the decision was made like, we can't live here anymore. Like, it is not a nice place to live. People did not treat it well.
Right.
It was just a bad situation to be in. So when my family was handing in the keys to whoever was taking care of the place, they were absolutely shocked at how clean the place was. Because anybody else that had already moved out within that amount of time, or when they go through and do their, it was just disgusting. It was terrible. Sure. It was a horrible place. And then it came out, talking to the property manager, that my mom was the last person in the whole complex who had not asked for a rent reduction. And got it. They all got them. They all got them. So here's the thing. Government housing, eventually, a lot of those people end up not paying for their housing. Which means you have government housing, your taxes on the people that are owning their homes and paying their mortgages will have to go up eventually because now you have to pay for the people living in government housing that are not paying for their homes. It's an overgeneralization. I understand that. But this was the reality of the situation in the early 80s. And then, as they were moving out, my mom said, well, like, how is this happening? Like, what are you talking about? That guy's got plenty of money.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. He's had financial trouble. He's had all these issues. And they just so happened to be having this conversation when the neighbor, the most recent neighbor they were talking about, it came out that he had a rent reduction. And the dude was pulling up in his brand new Cadillac to his government housing, of which he couldn't afford his rent. Now, I don't know what the prices were in those times. I'm just saying.
That's back when having a Cadillac was cool.
Back when having a Cadillac was cool.
Yeah.
But that is not the solution. And it will end up.
Is that building still there?
I'm sure they're still there. I don't know. I was too young to remember, really.
You should ask your mom where it was. And then we should go there and we should talk to the people that live there.
I don't know.
And just like in a curious way, like, hey, what was your process like getting approved to live here? How long have you been here? Do you ever plan on leaving? Have you gotten rent reductions? That would be interesting. I don't know.
It would be very interesting. How do you think, if it's so hard now for tenants to evict in BC, found new layers to that we should talk about as well.
Yeah.
If that's so hard, do you think the government's ever going to evict anyone? It's just going to become a money pit of paying for people. And I know I've said it a million times, right? We're given fish. We're not teaching fishing.
I mean, it would not just be a similar situation to what's going on with all the tents. Is the government or city isn't going in and removing them. They're just allowing them to be there because of all the other things surrounding it. And with government housing, it's like they're not, if they kick someone out of housing, even if they've missed rent for 6 months, that now makes a news story and the government's bad for doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our premier here prefers 10 cities. Like, he actually prefers them. So it's sad. It's sad to say that, but I mean, the guy, he was always an activist on the downtown east side, and now he's premier. So I don't know. So it's not good. Oh, can I go there? Were you gonna ask me about the tenancy thing I sent you the other day?
I was. So run me through this. So this is when you sell a property or when you lease the property. What is this?
When you're so you're moving in for yourself, or the buyer is moving in. Sold a property and the buyer's moving in. So we already know that we can't finance those properties anymore because they're more than 120 days notice, right? And you can't secure financing for more than 120 days. So
I mean, you can, Stephen, you can get financing. I just get what you're saying is that you can't confirm the number exactly. Lots of people can still get financing.
You're signing off.
I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying with the approval time frame and everything, but lots of people
have to get reapproved after your condition removal.
Understood. Which you shouldn't do, but lots of people do in every market.
Yes, lots of people are stupid enough to take that risk. For sure, there are. Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing that was touted was this big portal, a portal where the government is going to help you create your notice to the tenant.
Nothing screams efficiency like a portal.
Like a government portal of which you need to create something called a BCE-ID.
Okay.
So if you want to be tracked by the government, now you need a BCE-ID. So you make that. Then it came out, so they've announced this portal and it generates, so you type in your information, it generates the notice to be delivered to the tenant about why and how and when they're getting evicted. On the bottom of that letter, it also outlines all of the penalties. So the tenant and the landlord and everybody knows what the penalties are. It encourages, and this goes back down to the premier, on the downtown east side, encouraging, people getting arrested to sue the police. Like, that's what he used to do. I'm not going to make, he 100% used to do that. So it's encouraging you to actually basically fight your eviction, which is okay. Other side of it, great, fine. But then it comes out, what information goes into the portal? What information needs to be added? It turns out, and I'm going to try this. I have not yet got the courage to create my BCE ID. But it turns out, if I'm selling my property, I must provide to the government the buyer's name, birthday, and a copy of my contract of purchase and sale for the property.
That's where it gets a little crazy.
Along with subject removal and along with the buyer's notice to serve notice to the tenant, which is another form that comes along. And then get this is the best part. The tenant has to be served with my contract of purchase and sale, subject removals, and the notice to occupy. I don't know if they get the buyer. They do get the buyer's name. I do not know if they get the buyer's birth date and phone number, which also have to be supplied. I don't know the buyer's birth date.
Right. Yeah, they're not your client.
They're not my client. And if I'm a seller, like this isn't the realtor's generating this form. This is the owner of the property generating this form. Think about this. I'm selling my property to you, Tom, and my tenant now gets your info and the contract of which we agreed to on price. There may be terms and conditions in there. Like, I have no interest in you seeing anybody seeing my contract. What? I don't get it. I don't understand how this is even possible.
Let me ask you this. If you were to sell a property to an investor and it was tenanted, let's say it was a fourplex, it had 4 separate tenants, and this investor bought it and assumed all the tenants, what would you ask for if you were the buyer? If you were that investor buying that property, assuming the tenants, what would you ask for?
Do you need insurance? The answer to that question is obviously yes, of course you do. Whether you are a tenant, landlord, or homeowner, you need to insure your property and belongings. And when I insure my investment property, personally, I choose Square One. Square One is affordable online insurance for everyone. If you apply for your Square One insurance policy using the link in the description of the show notes, listeners of the Tom Storey Show can receive $20 off right now, simply by going to squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show. Square One is no joke. I personally use Square One for my landlord policy on my investment condo. I picked Square One because they were easier to work with than other insurance companies. And when I had an issue with my previous policy coverage in relation to my Strata's coverage, Square One was the insurance company that came up with a solution for my insurance problem at an affordable rate. Online quotes take less than 5 minutes with Square One. Get your home insurance quote today at squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show and save $20.
What would I ask for as the buyer?
Yeah, so you would ask for copies of the leases,
okay.
The original applications from the tenants, right? Now, none of this, I believe, is, I'm not saying it's mandatory. I'm saying, what would you ask for?
Well, you're going to be the owner of that tenancy.
Yep.
Right? So you're buying the tenancy is what you're buying. So then you have a right. The tenant's not buying my
I'm just flipping it on the other side to try to push back on you here.
I understand you are. I want proof from, the person I'm interacting with that the tenant has paid their rent. So I'm going to want some sort of a rent roll showing that they're paying on time.
I'm the tenant currently living there. I want proof that Tom's actually moving into this property and not just going to get me out of here and then resell it.
And I'm 100% on board with that.
Right.
Do you need my contract and subject removal? Do you need to know the terms of everything else that have to do with it is so insane. No, what you need to know is that your lease is transferring over. So I want you to know this, Tom. Remember that whole copycat BC thing?
Yep.
This rent protection comes in, and right after I was actually watching the CBC, which we should also talk about. I was watching the CBC on their traffic report on Toronto and how terrible it is. And then the story right after that was how Ontario evictions are not, being done in good faith, and how tenant protections need to be tightened up there. So 4-month evictions are coming your way too, buddy.
Okay, so then, let's
your way.
What does this mean then? Okay, so it's in place for you guys. We copy what you guys do later with pretty much almost everything you guys do. Hopefully not everything, but almost everything. What does this do to the market? This makes rent prices go up because investors are no longer interested. There's less rentals on the market. Investors are just trying to get out. What now happens because of this? What's the domino effect of tenants being protected more than they've ever been before? 4-month notice just for the new buyer to move in. So you got a Christmas closing if you just sold. Now what happens? Because getting the votes is one thing, but now what's the reality of the market moving forward? Less rentals, more people being displaced, higher rents?
I mean, in the long term. In the short term, personally, I think investment style properties, particularly condos, prices come down significantly because it's a big pain in the ass.
Right.
And I mean, I posted a video, 10,000 views, lots of comments now on my main channel about this. And of the landlords that posted, every landlord that did post said, I am exiting. So for Steve's business, great. Prices come down, more first-time buyers enter the market.
Sure.
Less rentals. I don't care. We don't do rentals. I make no money off of rentals. I make maybe money off of a landlord wanting to own a rental, but an actual rental I make no money off of.
Sure.
But there will be less. So first, I have more first-time buyers. I have way more first-time buyers than I have landlords. You're probably different being in the city. I have way more first-time buyers than landlords.
I wouldn't say way more, but yeah.
I am not investor-heavy business at all. Like I am first-time buyer and retiree-heavy in my business. So retirees, I did not just call you heavy. I'm sorry. But what I'm saying, first-time buyers are also heavy. No, just kidding. What I'm saying is this is actually, again, another one of those things like a real estate crash. Great for my personal life. Great.
Right.
But investors are saying, I'm not playing this game anymore. You're going to capital gains tax me if I do make a gain. You're going to make it impossible for me to get my property back. You're going to, if a tenant, if they introduced any of these rules and made anything easier for landlords, it would be great. For instance, I don't know, I have to clarify the rule, but I believe now within the 4 months, if the tenant leaves within that 4 months, they don't have to pay rent. Plus, you still have to give them a free month's rent.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right? They don't have to pay rent. Plus, you owe them $2,000 after serving them notice. Like, plus, let's say they leave in the first few days. You give them their month's rent. And now you don't get 3 months rent because your contract says so many days from now. Now, maybe you can move that up if the buyer wants to occupy. Maybe. Yep. But they've probably now agreed to, listen, my money's in a certain spot or whatever. I'm not moving in until January 1st now anyway, or February 1st now.
And then on top of all of that, just trying to sell a property with a tenant in it is impossible.
I don't know why you would want to. Why would you want to take that on?
Right.
So it's like, unless you're actually an investor and they're paying high enough rents. So if they're paying this year's rents, and you were like, hey, my play is long-term investment.
Yeah.
Great. But I'm just very put off by the whole thing. And landlords are being put off by the whole thing, which is why they're bringing in rental, government rental. So they have some rentals, and almost entirely we're going to shift towards rentals as a business from the government now. Like that's the only solution that there is. I don't see... Or BlackRock's coming in and buying everything.
BlackRock's always coming in and buying everything.
I mean, they're definitely not. But there are other REITs that will do this sort of thing, but they don't want the individual.
Well, the REITs are
the whole building.
The REITs, yeah, the REITs are building the purpose-built rentals from scratch. They don't want the one specific condo unit, right?
But they really messed up. It's really terrible. And I'm going to give you my last. I'll let you go after this, but I'm going to give you my last thing. So the premiers all got together 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Dougie? What was Dougie there?
All the premiers got together, and they united together, and they gave old JT the, if JT's even still in office by the time we do this, who knows? But they gave JT the whole step out of provincial. You are federal. Stay out of our business. And then 2 days later, our buddy Ravi, love you Ravi, sorry, gave an ultimatum to West Vancouver to change their municipal building codes.
So they're saying federally leave us alone, but then anyone below us municipally, we're still going to come for you.
They're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Hypocrites. Hypocrites are not going to make this whole thing work. So you can't say to JT, stay out of my business, but I'm going to stay into the city's business. Because West Vancouver, just so you know, West Vancouver is the richest real estate in the entire country.
Okay.
I'm going to say the average home in West Vancouver is $4.5 million. Like, it's stupid. There's 300 detached homes or something like that. There's not a ton of detached homes.
Right.
But they're all detached homes. Not a big place. They're all like cliff view, ocean view, like expensive stuff. Maybe it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more than 300. That was a dumb number. But they have now said, listen, we're not doing this. We don't want this to come in. We don't want you to tell us on a federal level where fourplexes can go. You don't understand the neighborhoods. You don't understand the infrastructure. You don't understand the history. You don't understand the people that live here. You're trying to paint the whole province with one brush, and that's not real. And let's face it, they're the rich people.
Right.
So they're probably going to start to get their way. And the whole city council voted against, and they're fighting. So that may have changed now. Like it's all very fluid. But the BC government has come in and said, if you don't adopt our fourplex law, we're changing it for you. And by the way, Justin, don't change anything for us.
Where do you think the fall market
Ravi's
goes?
Going to come back on. I love you, Ravi. I'm sorry.
I think Ravi will come back on.
I don't think he will, because I don't think I could. Here's the problem, Tom. I don't think I could stay polite enough to have that conversation anymore, because it's just.
I think you could.
It's dog shit. It's terrible policy that's making us poorer people, and I don't think a politician wants to hear me or wants to answer those questions.
All right, I'm going to change topics here just for a
Let's
second.
talk about the CBC.
Okay. Oh, CBC. Oh, well.
Yeah, how did that go?
It was good. I went in studio. I did their Metro morning show. And I will say, Stephen, nobody came to me before and said, you need to say this or you need to say this. I went in there with free will in a government-funded building, and I walked around and I said, wow, look at where all my taxes went. This place is beautiful. And I went in and I did the radio show, and David Commons, the host, was great. And I went in there and chatted with him for almost 10 minutes about specifically just the state of the condo market. And it was interesting because I hit on all the points that I typically hit on, and I actually really enjoyed that setup because it was like a podcast. Like, sat down, put on headphones, just talk to someone like a human being, right? And one of the things that it was interesting to see how he responded to it was when I said, there's a good chunk of the current condos for sale that are vacant. And his response was, it's just bonkers to hear that there's vacant properties in the midst of a housing crisis. Like, how is that a thing? And that tends to be the response. But I don't think, and hopefully I'm not realtoring this too much, like, I don't believe that 40% of the active inventory that is vacant was always vacant for the last 10 years. I think tenants gave notice. They're like, oh my God, we finally have an opportunity. Let's sell it with it being vacant. Or I already bought my next property. I'm going to move to that first because I can afford to do that. I'm going to leave it vacant because I know it's easier to sell it that way. So there's all these different things.
It's more the tenants left. I'm not going to try and evict somebody. Yep. Next time, let's just sell this thing. So exactly. Tenants have moved on. Let's get it gone. So that's likely why that's happening.
I just wanted to clarify that, because I've been saying that in a lot of my videos and posts online, and people are like, oh my God, they're all vacant. I'm like, well, they're currently vacant and that's why they're selling them. I'm just not convinced they were sitting vacant for the last 10 years. And now is the time with all these listings that they're going to give it a shot, right?
But I mean, you're credible to go to the CBC and say that, but they just clipped Daryl Frankfurt on one of their big reports.
They've really gone downhill.
I mean, can you even trust them anymore?
Goodness.
Have they gone full right-wing conspiracy on us now?
The first video they clipped me and I was flattered. Then they clipped Jordan. I'm like, hey, Jordan's in there. And then Daryl. So like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point.
Me next. They might if they call me. If you see the Peloton and the blue lights in the background on the CBC, we're in trouble.
But
there's no way with the cat poster or the Peloton I'm ever making it on there.
No, they'll put. I'm just shocked they found Daryl talking about something that he didn't swear, that they could actually use that clip and put it on the CBC video. And all I would say to Andrew and the whole team there, because your videos are great and they're doing really well on YouTube and you're obviously putting a lot of effort into them, please allow comments. Please allow, never. No, but CBC allows comments on other content. Mm-hmm. Like the Olympic stuff, when they're putting up a swimming highlight, there's comments all over it. Mm-hmm. It's just these housing videos, they're open up comments, let people have a discussion, get feedback from the people that watch you. Like we know not all comments are great, but it's good to get that feedback, whether you agree with it or not. If everything's always rosy or you just never hear anything, that's probably an issue.
It would always be like, you guys are shills, propping up JT, government propaganda. That's all it would be. So I actually quite enjoy a lot of the CBC. So I'm not going to trash on them. But like, clipping Daryl Frankfurt. Ugh.
Yeah, really gone to the bottom of it. Maybe there's now good news for first-time home buyers, Stephen, because as of August 1st, the new 30-year AM is now in place for first-time home buyers if you are buying a new property. And that's the big issue here, is that that's not going to impact most people in our markets.
Wait, but maybe is it only on brand new?
Yep.
Oh, so it's not like any first-time buyer?
Oh, not currently.
Okay, well,
not currently.
Not another policy.
Yeah, so it won't make any difference. If you really want to look at this and be cynical, it's basically like, oh, the government's just helping the developers sell their standing inventory because they're buddies, and we're going to get the first-time home buyers on the hook with the 30-year AM to pay more interest, which maybe there's a little bit of truth to that.
I stopped paying attention. I just realized I don't know when I actually filled up this water bottle last, but it's full.
Oh, that's interesting.
Gross. No, it's a nothing. It's a nothing. It's a nothing.
It's a nothing.
This water bottle is more interesting than that headline.
Here's where I want to wrap this up. Okay. Previous guest, Nick Hill, put this out on his Instagram, and it showed the new projections from the big boy banks on where the overnight rate is going to go. And it is now a path to 2.75. 2.75 by the end of Q4 2025, so end of year next year, a year and a half from now, TD and CIBC believe Bank of Canada will be at 2.75. So should I take a variable rate these days? I'm not buying anything else, but should I take should people take a variable?
That thing you and I were talking about, I'm thinking about that too.
Might work, right?
You don't want to say that here.
You can't say that here.
Yeah. I think there's a very high likelihood that we come down faster than we previously thought.
But the economists have always been aggressive with their cut projections.
Mm-hmm. So the end of 2025, are we at 3%? Yes.
Most of the banks. Yes. Scotia thinks 3.25.
It's actually it's a very even over-under.
Yeah, 3.5 on the high and 2.75 on the low.
So let's read this here because you've actually got it in the notes. Thanks. TD says at the end of next year, we'll be at 2.75. So does CIBC, but what the hell do they know? RBC, 3%, BMO, 3.5%, and Scotia, 3.25%. Scotia was the one that was most accurate on the way down, but they still got it wrong by double.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same economist at Scotia saying that, though. BMO, well, hey, friend of the show, Doug Porter, I'm going to say you're right. And I'm going with 3.5% because I do want Doug back on the show.
So you think 2 more cuts this year to get us to 4%, and then
At least
they'll hold.
I think we're going to be at 3%.
I think right. I think we're gonna be lower than 3.5 based on where things are
We're
at.
going to be at 4 at the end of this year, and I think we're going to be at 4 more cuts the following year.
Probably right,
because things are getting rougher than.
It's gonna be now that they've cut a few times in a row. It's going to be interesting to see what the language is like the next time they hold and they don't cut. Obviously, it would be clear on why they do that.
Did you hear Tiff's? Did you listen to the press conference, though? He's like, oh, we're continuing to cut. Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. They're going to continue to cut, but whenever they can't cut at every, like, till the end of 2025, they can't cut every announcement because they'll be lower than 2.75.
Yeah.
Right?
So RBC and Scotia are the only ones saying a cut in September. Then everybody's saying there's going to be some sort of a cut in the last quarter of this year.
Yep, probably.
And then everybody's lower again, and then lower again. Yeah, lower again. So every quarter, except for the next quarter, everybody's predicting more cuts every quarter until the end of 25, where it gets like, maybe we're going to cut, maybe we're not going to cut. But I mean, I see 3, which means it's not going to be 3. I do know I will be wrong.
Maybe it's 2.5. Who knows where this goes? But I'll leave you with this, Stephen. Maybe renting is better than buying after all. For the next 2.5 years.
That. I'll leave you with that. With this. No. I'll leave you with tell me how that works out for you in retirement.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point that would be hard to argue against.
Oh, can you imagine right now, like, if you were a renter and you were paying for the last 20 years, you were in the same spot and you were paying $1,800 a month, and you got evicted, and now you're paying $3,200. No, you're not paying $3,200. You're trying to find a 1-bedroom now for $1,800 a month. That's why. Don't do it. Nice lady that talked to Tom. Don't do it. Just buy and plan to stay there for a long period of time. Well, yes, prices are going to come down for a bit.
Hopefully, I'll interview her and we'll figure this out. Taylor Hack, when we had him on the show last time, he talked about, when the market in Steve's favorite place, Edmonton, wasn't doing anything or actually losing. It was like, well, why are people buying if renting is the same or cheaper? And his whole thing just came to, like, they don't want to be told that they have to leave. They want to do renovations to their property that they're in control of. And it all kind of came back to that.
Do you think that's more of a, like, Alberta mentality? Like,
I don't know.
Can't tell me what to do, because that's kind of where I'm like, I feel like I should move to Alberta. Like, maybe we feel like it's okay to be told what to do in the cities more because we're used to being told what to do. So it's like, okay, I got to move.
Yeah, but all the being told what to do, people are moving to Alberta.
I don't think people, though, young folks in condos mind the eviction nearly as much as like a family, right?
Yeah, of course, because it's not that, well, it's always a big deal, but it's not the same impact.
So you think in your 20s, what's the big deal? But as soon as you're in your late 30s still renting and have a family, it is a very big deal.
Well,
and that's when, like, the decision you made in your early 20s impacts you now, right? Like, you are only a result of your whole future is a result of every decision you've made before. So the point is not the here and now. The here and now is the problem, right? Like, you make a decision for here and now, like the tenancy rules are, to stop the tenant from being evicted today, and you screw yourself for the future. So that's why, Tom, I'm going back on what I said earlier. Do not rent. Buy for the future. Buy and hold. Be in real estate. This was way more than our final points.
I just had someone that I know that was a week away from giving birth, and they were renting a place, and they got notice that their landlord was selling a week before they had their first kid. And imagine just the anxiety inducing that creates in that moment. So for that reason alone,
So you don't let her live at home and you make her live in your rental property?
I'm not talking about
about
my about my significant other.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But okay, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Hey, maybe renting's better. Maybe it's not. We'll leave that up to you. I don't even know. I think Steve's pretty clear, and I think for some people it might be. All right. Have a great day. Bye.
I love you. Mwah.
I think I got